We're now going to look at Chapter 11, which is the last chapter we're going to cover in this class. We're only going to look at 4 sections of the chapter. All of them are going to deal with quadratic equations, which are written in this form. Notice that x squared is what makes it quadratic. For 11.1, we're going to use the square root theorem. We have 3 ways to solve these. The first way is the square root theorem. The second way is completing the square. The third way is to use the quadratic formula. We also could just factor, but if you can't factor, then you've got to use one of these other ways. So we're going to look at the square root theorem and the quadratic formula. I'm not going to spend time on completing the square because it's a little complicated and everything can be done with this formula. So we're going to spend our time on these 2 and not any on this. So in your future algebra classes, you may have an instructor that likes completing the square, and that's okay. But know that you can get that information by going to YouTube, by going to khanacademy.org. This is an excellent website for math and your science classes. But because you can do everything with the quadratic formula, that's why I'm not going to take our time with completing the square. I don't think I've mentioned Khan Academy before in my videos, and now that we're towards the end of the class, I wish I had. I do mention it, I believe, in your resources, on your resources page. If not, I probably need to go in and mention it somewhere because it is an excellent website. So looking at the square root theorem, we want to remember what I said earlier when we were doing, we had things like 3, we had squared, and then we had to, we said that if we did the radical, then those 2 things canceled out each other. And so that's really what we're looking at here. But you want to remember for the square root theorem is that, 3 squared equals 9. But so does -3 squared. It also equals 9. So when we're looking at the square root theorem, we have to keep in mind that we're going to have 2 answers. So let's look at if I have x squared equals 9. The way that I want to handle this is to use that radical to cancel out. So we're going to take the radical here, the square root of this, and we do it over here, but we also, it's the plus or minus, because remember, it can be +3's or 2 -3's. The radical and the square itself cancel out so that we're left with x. Here, my answer will be the plus or minus 3. In my math lab, they'll give you a box and they want you to write the answers and separate them with a comma. If you were in my face-to-face class and we were having a test, then you could leave it with the plus or minus. That would be okay with me. But you want to keep in mind for my math lab, they want both answers separated by a comma. Okay, so I went ahead and showed you how to write the answer. You simplify square root of 9 to be 3, but then this is how you will need to write your answer into my math lab. Be sure that you write that plus or minus when you're using this method. Now, because we have something else to do, we're not finished, we are going to take and separate these out so that we have x plus 3 equals a positive 4, and then x plus 3 equals a negative 4. So x would equal 1 and x would equal negative 7. And then let's see if those will check. Let's check these answers. They are equations, so we can check. So if I have, and always when you're checking, well, that should be an H. I cannot write tonight. Check. Start with your original. So I have x plus 3 squared equals 16. And let's see if it works. So the first answer is 1. So I have 1 plus 3 squared. That's 4 squared. 16 equals 16. It matches. So remember, that means that answer is okay. Then let's do the next one. We're starting with the original. So I have negative 7 plus 3 squared equals 16. That's negative 4 squared. And negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. And so again, they match. So that tells me my negative 7 is correct. Let's go ahead and isolate this x squared. So we're going to move that 42 over. So I have 3x squared equals a positive 42. Go ahead and divide by that 3. And then we want to come in and do our square root theorem. We can't simplify 14. It's 2 times 7. And so this will be our answer. Go ahead and move that 49 over. And see, before we didn't have a way to handle this negative, but now we do. So we have x equals plus or minus, do that again. We're going to take the square root of 49, and that negative comes out as an I. All right, I bet you can guess what time it is. Time to practice. Let's see. Okay, so go ahead and write those down, pause the video, and do the math, then come back and check your answers. Okay, so there's the answers for those two. I went ahead and wrote this out like it will be on my math lab, so you can see how to go ahead and separate those out. We can't add these together because they're not like terms. So although it looks like it's not finished, it really is. Okay, that's all there is for the square root theorem. Our next section, we will learn how to use the quadratic formula, and most of you probably remember that somewhat. I do recommend that you put it on a 3x5 card and keep it handy while you are testing.